CRTV News, ici, toute l'info. CRTV News, ici, toute l'info. CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
The Cameroon government announces a chain of disruptive measures to slow the speed of the ravaging coronavirus as the number of confirmed cases in the country hit the double-figure mark. The African Nations Football Championship that Cameroon was to host come April becomes one of the very early victims of the coronavirus as the scare of the pandemic triggers an indefinite postponement of the competition. Those are our lead stories. Hello, thanks for joining us on the news. I am Ben Menopufong. President Paul Biya has qualified the coronavirus as a serious and unprecedented health crisis confronting humanity, calling on Cameroonians to strictly respect hygiene and sanitary rules from the government and the World Bank and the World Health Organization. The presidential alert was made via the tweet on social media today. Charles Ebune presents the scope and content of the presidential tweet.
About 10 a.m. today, Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngute begins to hold an about 3-hour crisis meeting on the coronavirus, with 10 cases confirmed in Cameroon. Already aware of the global gravity of the pandemic, with over 180,000 people infected worldwide, with plus 7,000 others dead, President Paul Biya takes to Twitter and Facebook an hour after the crisis meeting to address what he calls a serious and unprecedented health crisis globally. Conscious of the fact that there is no price to the health of any citizen, the president tasked all Cameroonians to adopt a sense of responsibility to bar the spread of the coronavirus. To materialize this, President Paul Biya tells every individual to strictly respect the guidelines of the government and those of the World Health Organization. And talking about the government, transparency has been at the center of all policy directives justified by the daily updates of the evolution of the situation in Cameroon by Public Health Minister Madauda Malashi. The president, in this 3-paragraphs tweet containing 58 words, recalls to all Cameroonians a new lifestyle imposed by the pandemic which affects our daily lives and the economy because schools, events, and company calendars are already modified. Today's outing on coronavirus brings to mind other presidential measures taken, like the disbursement of 50 million CFA francs to the coronavirus-trapped Cameroonian student community in Wuhan, China, where the virus started a few months ago. A humanist by all standards, constantly protecting the well-being of the Cameroonian people, this is not surely the last act by President Paul Biya on the quickly spreading deadly coronavirus.
As I was saying in the headlines, the government of Cameroon has announced the closure of its land, air and sea borders with effect from tomorrow, Wednesday, March 18, 2020, as part of its response to the coronavirus pandemic. The decision comes on the heels of an interministerial meeting in Yaoundé today, chaired by the Prime Minister, head of government, to evaluate the situation and adopt appropriate measures to check the dangerously rising trend in the number of confirmed cases on Cameroonian soil. Let's take a listen of Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngute in his declaration to the press moments ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, in December 2019, the coronavirus outbreak was declared in the Wuhan province of the People's Republic of China. Over time, it gradually spread to Asia, Europe, and Africa, resulting in the death or quarantine of several people. A few days ago, the World Health Organization announced that the coronavirus has gone from an epidemic to a pandemic, with over 170,000 cases in 146 countries and about 6,500 deaths. Cameroon, like many other countries in the world, is not spared by this pandemic. From the very first hours of its emergence, the government implemented a prevention and response plan aimed at stemming the spread of this pandemic. To date, 10 people have been diagnosed with this virus in our country and are being treated by specialized services. It should be noted, however, that so far no local outbreaks of this epidemic have been recorded in Cameroon, and the cases identified so far are persons who have recently been abroad. However, in the face of what appears now to be a global health crisis, the measures taken so far deserve to be strengthened to prevent the spread of this virus in our country. Consequently, on the instructions of the head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya, an interministerial consultation was held this March 17th to assess the situation and identify appropriate actions to be in. At the end of this meeting, the President of the Republic instructed the following measures. As from Wednesday, 18th March 2020, till further notice, 1. Cameroon's land, air, and sea borders will be closed. Consequently, all passenger flights from abroad will be suspended, with the exception of cargo flights and vessels transporting consumer products and essential goods and materials, whose stopover times will be limited and supervised. 2. The issuance of entry visas to Cameroon at the various airports shall be suspended. 3. All public and private training and educational establishments of various levels of education, from nursery school to higher education, including vocational training centers and professional schools, will be closed. 4. Gatherings of more than 50 persons are prohibited throughout the national territory. 5. School and university competitions like the FENASCO Games, which are supposed to be held in the days ahead, are postponed. 6. Under the supervision of administrative authorities, bars, restaurants, and entertainment spots will be systematically closed from 6 p.m. 7. A system for regulating consumer flows will be set up in markets and shopping centers. 8. Urban and inter-urban travel should only be undertaken in cases of extreme necessity. 9. Drivers of buses, taxis, motorbikes are urged to avoid overloading. law enforcement officers will ensure that they comply. 10. Private health facilities, hotels and other lodging facilities, vehicles and specific equipment necessary for the implementation of the COVID-19 pandemic response plan in Cameroon may be requisitioned as required by competent authorities. 11. Public administration shall give preference to electronic communications and digital tools for meetings likely to bring together more than 10 people. 12. Missions abroad of members of government and public and para-public sectors, employees are hereby suspended. 13. The public is urged to respect and observe the hygiene measures recommended by the World Health Organization, including regular hand washing with soap, avoiding close contact such as shaking hands or hugging, and covering the mouth when sneezing. These are difficult but necessary measures to ensure the protection of each and everyone and to limit the spread of this pandemic. In case of need, the public is invited to call the toll-free number 1510 set up for the mobilization of rescue teams. The government calls on the public not to panic, but to show discipline, solidarity, and a sense of responsibility at a time when the whole world is going through difficult times. I thank you very much.
Prime Minister Joseph Dion Gutta there outlining the series of measures that government has taken to stem the spread of the coronavirus pandemic in Cameroon. And still in relation to the coronavirus, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, has postponed the 2020 African Nations Championship to a date yet to be announced. The decision announcing the postponement is contained in a press release signed by the Acting Secretary General of CAF, based on a proposal from the local organizing committee, that is the CONAFUT, and that is the COCAN, that held and met in an extraordinary session in Yaoundé today, requesting for the competition to be kept on hold pending the arrest of the ravaging coronavirus. Baldwin Sama reports.
Tuesday's extraordinary meeting of the local organizing committee of the 2020 African Nations Championship was simply to explain the devastating effects of the coronavirus, which affects many African countries, and to make public their proposal to see the competition postponed. After analyzing the different exchanges between CAF and COCAN on the situation of the virus and the dates of the competition, Sports and Physical Education Minister Professor Narcisse Mwele Kombi, who doubles as the president of the local organizing committee, said with 10 out of 16 countries to participate in this year's African Nations Championship affected, and with the increase in the number of persons affected in Cameroon, COCAN unanimously proposes, based on instruction from the highest state authority and equally on government measures to fight against the coronavirus pandemic, in accordance with the Confederation of African Football, the idea to postpone the 2020 African Nations Championship has been retained. In this regard, members of the local organizing committee are called upon to be on standby for any eventuality.
Dans la préparation et l'organisation du Centre Total Cameroun 2020, à rester en état de veille et de disponibilité à toutes fins utiles.
In return, the Confederation of African Football CAF reacts saying, following the growing concerns of the coronavirus and the report of the recently concluded medical inspection visits to the host country of the 2020 African Nations Championship, CAF Emergency Committee decided to postpone the competition until further notice. The Emergency Committee also decided it was necessary to postpone the planned Executive Committee and 42nd General Assembly initially scheduled on the 24th of April in Cameroon. CAF administration will propose the potential new dates in due time, depending on the improvements of the situation.
And as the corona scare intensifies in the country, government has gone on the offensive, installing medical equipment at the airports and deploying personnel in the field to detect and trace potential carriers of the virus. Alice May has been talking to some senior health officials on the government's response mechanism and pieced together the following report.
The tracing contact method begins at the airport. Travelers are obliged to fill the registration list with detailed information, making it possible for health officials to trace them in case of any suspicion.
Through the tracing contact method, we have discovered 3 cases infected by the lady who came from France, 1 other case contaminated by the first case who also came from France, and 1 new case still coming from France who was already contaminated. We are still carrying out research to find out those who have come in contact with the patients for screening.
While inside the plane, flight attendants have the additional role of identifying who sat where, so that in case of any suspected case, those who sat next to the victim can be traced.
We have flight attendants in the planes. They map out zones where each passenger sits. This method has helped us to discover some suspected cases who have been sent to Centre Pasteur for examination.
The government is inviting anyone who has come in contact with a recent traveler to Cameroon to opt and be screened. To the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malashi, the population needs to keep practicing good measures of hygiene in order to avoid contamination. Measures are envisaged by the government to contain the spread of the virus.
In case the epidemic spreads, we will need to create more space to keep the patients. There is going to be more mobilization by the government, more surveillance, and lots of sacrifices.
The population is advised to call the toll-free number 1510 in case of any suspected case.
As the number of coronavirus cases soar in Cameroon, with a 10th case already confirmed, most public institutions have begun adopting measures to bar the killer virus from spreading. Some schools, for instance, have already shut down even before the Prime Minister announced it officially, while churches have reviewed their liturgical proceedings, with some families restricting movements and interpersonal interactions to limit the risk of propagation. Beatrice Ngum has an overview of some of these personal and collective actions being deployed to halt the coronal carnage.
This is the exit of an elevator at the Ministry of Public Works. Unlike before, a new device has been incorporated to the lift. It's a disinfectant tool. Here in the ministry, the device is placed in all entrances to meeting rooms and corridors of buildings, and the staff has also been supplied.
The first measure is sensitization of staff on basic hygiene. We also made available disinfectants to all staff, and all elevators have disinfectants.
Administration too is using posters to sensitize users on preventive measures. In churches, administrators have released pastoral notes calling on worshippers to avoid hugs, handshakes, and all forms of salutation that involve body contact. Parents too are taking measures to reduce the risk of propagation of the disease. Some have bought hand sanitizers for their kids. Universities, administrative, hygienic, and academic measures have been taken to control the spread. Administratively, lessons in the University of Yaoundé 1 Guaykele have been suspended. Movie projections on campus, likewise sports activities, suspended as well. Academically, e-learning, e-teaching, and online lessons will replace classroom teaching for this period, and the campus bus is suspended. At the level of hygiene, students have been sensitized to wash their hands often and disinfectants placed on campus. On the whole, parents and administrations are doing their best to reduce the risk of propagation of the COVID-19. Reason why in most pharmacies and supermarkets, disinfectants and nose masks are in short supply and scarce. Their prices have even doubled.
And you're watching the 7:30 news on the Cameroon radio television, the CRTV. We are broadcasting live from Yaoundé. Cameroon's election watchdog, ELECAM, is multiplying meetings ahead of the March 22 legislative election rerun in parts of the northwest and southwest regions. The organ was meeting in a statutory session in Yaoundé today, during which the board chair, Eno Abrams Egbe, expressed the wish for fairness and tolerance to prevail throughout the repeat electoral operations. Kilian Dandifon reports.
Flanked by his vice president, the Director General of Elections, the Deputy Director General of Elections, and the board members, the chairperson of the Electoral Board of ELECAM, Eno Abrams Egbe, in a meeting as of right, made a clarion call to all the stakeholders in the March 22 legislative election rerun: political parties, candidates, voters, civil societies, state representatives, on the defense and security forces to exercise nothing less than patriotism in an election which takes place in a special context in the history of the country. The partial election rerun takes place in constituencies in Mezamomo, Menchum, and Mbui divisions in the northwest region and Lebielem in the southwest region, all localities with heightened activities of separatist fighters, activities which for security reasons caused ELECAM to create polling centers instead of polling stations, a move that gave the petitions of the opposition parties to bring the process to this other trying moment of the election rerun. It is, as the board chairperson of the Electoral Board of ELECAM pointed out, a special moment in the history of the nation for all vote holders, whoever they are, to show proof of fraternity, tolerance, fairness, and courtesy in an electoral process which enters a crucial chapter of the history of the nation.
In our dossier tonight, we are talking mobile telephone with the coming of Camtel as a fourth operator and a new entrant in the GSM's business. While Camtel may view this innovation as a major leap forward, it will equally entail an improvement in the quality of services so as to stand the storm in an already highly competitive market. Question: what prospects for this new bee in a sector where service innovation is key? Yoti Kalilisonge attempts an answer.
Strategy, experts say, will determine the fate of Cameroon telecommunications if they want to get their fair share of the market of mobile operators in the country.
The new operators, Camtel, need to have a mastery of the market to be imposing. Camtel having better equipment and tempting offers will be a good strategy.
Their competitors in the domain, Orange and MTN, have over 7 million active subscribers and Nextel more than 3 million. Providing customers with an electronic wallet is an added advantage to MTN and Orange.
Camtel need to reinforce their marketing team.
Having a large scale of technicians, having a very big experience in telecommunication market in Cameroon, and owning almost the whole telecommunication network in Cameroon, Camtel has a good chance to be one of the best.
Being the transport highway for the other three mobile telecommunication operators in the country gives Camtel an upper hand.
These telecommunication, there are networks which allows to transfer data from point to point.
Camtel's transport network will be used by all mobile operators, including Camtel. So for an equal, transparent and objective regulation, we will ensure that everyone has equal access.
Up until now, the cellular networks of all three operators have not gone beyond the fourth generation.
The other point that Camtel has is to win the match of the fifth generation of GSM technologies. So here, if we try to make a projection in the future, Camtel has a lot of opportunity to be the leader of fifth-generation networks in Cameroon.
The market is therefore open, and it is now left for Cameroon Telecommunications to explore.
And some Cameroonians are of the opinion that the first impact of Camtel as a fourth mobile operator in Cameroon will be measured from the consumer satisfaction and its ability to attract more customers. Emmanuel Avamioy spoke to some of them in Yaoundé on some of the challenges that await Camtel in this field and compiled the following report.
It is either they are sending or receiving text messages and or calls or simply surfing on the internet. Many Cameroonians have been good customers to the 3 existing mobile telephone operators in Cameroon over the years. This may likely change with the fourth operator, whom they are eager to try out its services if it meets their expectations.
Camtel as a home-based company, if they can even do more better than these other 2 companies in terms of internet transactions, network cost in communication.
I expect Camtel to give good internet connection.
They should extend communication network nationwide. They should make communication cheaper with other networks.
A fourth mobile telephone operator in the market, experts say equals more competition that would push for better service delivery like low communication cost, wide network coverage and internet facilities amongst others. This, they say, because consumers now have a modicum of choice.
Camtel is the mother of telephone in Cameroon. So you need Camtel to make everything become, how to say, accessible. Now, with Camtel, consumer will get exactly what they pay for.
Being the mother operator in Cameroon, consumers believe Camtel has the ability to impact a lot on the cost of communication and ensure that money realized by the company is plowed back into the Cameroonian economy to better lives. All these are expectations Cameroonians want to see realized by the fourth mobile telephone operator.
And the Ministry of Social Affairs in Cameroon is partnering with some committed non-governmental organizations to roll out the phenomenon of street children in Cameroon. The National Commission for the Protection of Children in Moral Danger has been leading reflections in this direction as it met in its first session in Yaoundé with Minister Pauline Irene Gene chairing the deliberations. We have details with Joyce Tata.
As the years go by, the more the number of street children increases, posing a huge problem to society and uncertainty of tomorrow's future generation. But the National Commission for the Protection of Children in Moral Danger, Abandoned and Delinquents, in its first sitting, says it's time for action.
The problem is very dense. That's why we're trying to go beyond what we're doing today, so that street children not only will try to take them out of the street, but try to teach them a few things so that they will be autonomous.
Beforehand, some measures put in place by the Ministry of Social Affairs in the fight against the phenomenon yielded fruits, which today need to be increased.
To 2018, we have touched 800 and tried to let 300 going back to autonomy. Last year, we touched less than this, and 36 went back to families. The strategy is in 3 phases. First of all, be in touch with them, have educative talks with them, and after that, try to see with them what is comfortable for them and accompany them in that manner.
This session will be closely followed by an immediate field work to fish out these street children in need of shelter, a supportive hand to be better citizens of the country, thereby curbing this modern society.
Members of the National Joint Commissions in charge of elections of staff representatives in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security were meeting in Yaoundé today to plan for impending election of staff delegates. Minister Gregoire Wona, who chaired the deliberations, exhorted stakeholders to work in synergy so as to promote a social dialogue in the work milieu. Ewane Epole reports.
The general provisions of the Labour Code states that staff representatives shall be necessarily elected in all public, parastatal and private structures in the national territory. After a 2-year mandate of some staff voted in 2018 in their different enterprises, other elections are expected to be organized this year. To plan for the event, members of the National Joint Commissions in charge of elections of staff representatives in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security met in Yaoundé this Tuesday.
As we know, everything that has to do with labor has to be tripartite, so we always have to have the government point of view, the employer's point of view, and the employee's point of view. It was a laudable idea of the minister to at least get us involved so that together as the three parties we can be able to come up with the possible dates that are convenient for everyone.
Chairing the meeting, Minister Gregoire Owona employed the stakeholders to work in synergy with their managements in order to promote social dialogue in their working milieu. The minister promised them human, material and financial support to ensure hitch-free elections scheduled to take place in a later date this year.
Now on to this development just reaching us. The 23-man Permanent Bureau of the National Assembly has been elected with Kavai Yege Jibril retaining his office as Speaker. This was during a plenary sitting presided over by the eldest member of the House, Laurentine Mbede. He recorded 147 votes of the 167 cast. Ilarion Etong was re-elected as Senior Deputy Speaker, while for the post of Deputy Speaker, Abba Alim of the NUDP, Joshua Osi of the SDF, and that are all now one of the new quaestor of one of the 4 quaestors at the National Assembly. For the 12 secretaries, newcomers like Cabral Libi of the PCRN, Lawson Tabot of the CPDM were also voted into office. And we stay at the National Assembly, where the Secretary General is hereby informing members of the National Assembly that in view of better informing them on the various parliamentary administration services that assist them in the accomplishment of their missions, the 3rd edition of the Parliamentary Open Days will be organized from the 18th to the 20th of March in the main courtyard of the National Assembly. In this connection, they are cordially invited to grace these days with their presence in order to gather all useful information for the fulfillment of their parliamentary mandate. Mayors of some 3 councils in the Southwest region have been commissioned into office with instructions to devote their mandate to the development of their council area and the betterment of the lives of their constituents. They are Pierre-Marie Fogab of the Alo Council, Nikasus Masong of the Menji Council, and Nembo Israel of the Wambane Council. They were commissioned yesterday, as we hear in this joint report with Guy Roger Nana and Charles Abuno of CRTV Southwest.
During the ceremony, the mayor of Konye, Barrister George Musimalobe, and the mayor of Mbonge, Chief Daniel Mata Mukambe, pledged not only to uphold the law, but also to serve the people of their municipalities. After taking the oath of office, the presiding judge reminded the municipal authorities to remain law-abiding and never to find themselves wanting.
Whatever thing we are doing means that we have to be conscious of our actions. Our commitment to the state should be what is within our mind, to serve the nation in purity.
For many, the fact that the law warrants that mayors are sworn in is a clear testimony that the government is serious in conferring real authority in the hands of local officials.
This is not an ordinary court session. The court of first instance has been moved to the premises of the office of the DO for Alu for the swearing in of the mayors of Alu, Pierre-Marie Fogap, Menji Nkemasong Nikasius, and Wabane Nembo Israel.
The law makes it obligatory
for they to be sworn in. It is a must, without which they cannot perform their duties.
Paul Tassong, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Economy, Planning and Regional Development, present at the ceremony, equally expressed hope for brighter days ahead in Libialem.
New people, new blood will certainly have its impact on the development process of the division.
Mobilization is ongoing within the division to ensure that Sunday's polls go on smoothly in Libialem.
Now on to this obituary. The mortal remains of late Christopher Lobe, attaché at the Presidency of the Republic and one-time staff of the CRTV, were laid to rest today at his colorful residence. Rather, he was laid to rest on Friday. Before his death, he was a worker at the Presidency of the Republic, and among the mourners, was the second Deputy Secretary General of the Presidency, Muhammadu Mustafa. Tabot Nicholas Egbe reports from CRTV Center.
Hundreds of mourners were present at the mortuary of the Yaoundé General Hospital during the coffining of the late Christopher Lobe, who died on the 1st of March 2020. Amongst them, the second Assistant Secretary General of the Presidency, Mr. Muhammadu Mustafa, who joined the family of the late journalist in sharing in their grief. For his colleagues and classmates of the 23rd batch of the Advanced School of Mass Communication, they could not withstand the loss of their colleague.
Christopher was a good man. He was our friend for 30 years now. We started in ASMAC 30 years ago, and now we are here to bid him farewell. And we are very sad because he was a good man. And each of the meeting we held, he was there. And he was there with joy, with happiness. Today he's gone, but he remains in our memories.
Christopher Lobe was decorated with a posthumous medal, while a condolence letter was handed to the wife by Mr. Muhammadu Mustafa. Born on the 11th of November 1960, Christopher Lobe leaves behind his family and friends to mourn him.
And it's on that sad note that we call it quits on this edition of the 7:30 News. Thanks for watching. Let's do it all over again tomorrow. Good night.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.